Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Golden Astrologer Podcast. This is Deb McBride, and I am recording this in lovely Escazú, Costa Rica, where it is dusk. And today is Sunday, the 28th of July, in the year 2024. So, we have an interesting week ahead, not something where I believe the energies are uncontrollable or strange, but I do believe that Venus is really the planet with the most activity this week. So let's get into it. The goddess is in the sign of Leo. And as I speak, she is at 21 degrees Leo. So she's pretty far along in the sign of Leo. And she is going to make some interesting aspects. The first one is on Tuesday the 30th when she's talking to Chiron very nicely. So it's a time when we can safely look at our wounds, connect with what we know is a wound or where we feel we have been wounded, maybe in our relationships, and sort of make peace with it, understand it, forgive ourselves, forgive other people, look at it from a perspective of healing, because Venus will be making a trine. So that's a very nice relationship to Chiron. Chiron, who just stationed retrograde on Friday the 26th, 2 days ago. And I felt that very strongly. I don't know about the rest of you out there, but I felt that. I felt it. I woke up in the middle of the night and was awake for a number of hours, and it really isn't provoking anything profound in my astrological chart, so I don't quite understand, but just the shifts and the movements of the planets do make me feel a little uncomfortable, I guess. I'm very sensitive to those things. So if you did feel that Chiron station, then you're not alone. But Venus is talking to Chiron, and they are getting along relatively well on the 30th, Tuesday, and we have that happening at 3:54 p.m. Eastern Time. Then we have Venus squaring Uranus. Now, that's a little trickier because it's going to be, Leo to Taurus, and there's fixed signs. These are fixed signs involved. And so what's interesting is that Uranus is in Venus's sign. And so they're going to be having a conversation that's a little stressful or excitable or surprising. And that's what happens on Friday the 2nd. Now, that is something that I would say could be a very strong aspect for some people. If you are someone who has Venus square Uranus and they are very much attention that you deal with every day in your life, then you're going to feel this. Now, Venus and Uranus are interesting because Venus says, I want to get close, especially in Leo. She wants to be generous and she wants to be fabulous and glamorous and sexy and all those juicy good things. And she wants to be spoiled and treated like a queen. And Uranus is making a challenge to that. And has expectations. Now, Uranus is a planet that says you can't have expectations. If you expect something from me, you have to expect the unexpected. And so when we get Venus and Uranus together, Venus and Leo has some very high expectations, and she's very firm on them. Remember, we're dealing with fixed signs. So she wants this royal treatment, and she expects that people are going to go out of their way for her, or that she is going to be, adored and revered, and that may not be the case when she squares Uranus. Now, in that kind of a dynamic, she may make demands and get an unexpected response. Or she may stay relatively quiet and then also get an unexpected response. Venus, you look so beautiful. Come right in. Let's talk. Where have you been? How have you been? So there's that. It's also a very social aspect. It's going to occur in the morning in Eastern Time, 9:27 a.m., but it's the start of the weekend next weekend. And that's a very interesting way to start the weekend. It could be very exciting. It's very exciting if you have a date that night, if you have a date the night before, and if you have a desire to go out shopping, well, then I say you may get some unexpected bargains, or you might be doing some deep creative work. Okay, there's lots of interpretations for Venus square Uranus. An old lover can appear from the past. A new lover may appear out of nowhere. This is the nature of Uranus. It could be a wild card situation. You may hear from someone you haven't heard from in years. But this is something really sparkly. And if you are in the realm of the creative work, and we're all creative on some level, then you could do something innovative with that energy. Now, don't wait for it to surprise you. Get going on something. Like maybe it's creativity that you want to spend your weekend doing. That's a great way to use this energy. It's summer up north. Maybe you want to tend to your garden. Maybe you're doing your artwork. Maybe you're having creative sparks of genius at this moment. But this is a juicy aspect for all of those things. And I really recommend that you take your energies in that direction rather than throwing a tantrum, which can be very possible with Venus and Leo squaring Uranus. Out of nowhere, you go from 0 to 90 and you're like furious at your partner, because it is Venus, remember, or maybe your kids, because it's Leo, and you just lose your cookies, okay? So you really want to, again, like I said, when Mars was busy with Uranus, watch yourself, pay attention, and use the energy wisely. Whenever it's Uranus, it's always important to use the energy with thought and foresight, as opposed to allowing things to infuriate you. When we had that Mars-Uranus conjunction a few weeks ago, I was very involved in watching an AI summit online, and it was very inspiring, and I took a lot of notes, and I took some information, and I was learning new things. This is good energy for Uranus. It kept me out of trouble. It kept me out of arguments. Not that I'm argumentative or I go around arguing with people, but it made me keep my head, and that's one of the things we always want to make sure with Uranus, because it can spark and go off in a minute. It's very abrupt. It's very impulsive. So you want to take this Venusian energy and work with it and say, hey, I'm really interested in deepening my creativity in this area of my life, or deepening my understanding of something. It's a good time to get into a deep book of things that are mystical or metaphysical or neuroscience or something like that. So I would recommend that. Now, if you're going to a party or you throw a party, that could be really great too. And just, make sure you keep a lid on it. People don't get out of control with Uranus. They can go way out of control. Jupiter too, obviously, but we're not dealing with a lot of Jupiter this week. And we want to get really connected to the creative inspirations, the things that give us a lot of ideas and sparkliness in our life. Okay, so that's Venus and Uranus, and that's on Friday the 2nd. Yes, folks, it's almost August, if you can believe it. It feels like the end of May was yesterday, but it's almost August. So here we are. It's almost August. These are the last few days of July. And then we get into Sunday of next week, which is the next time we meet, but I should tell you in advance that we have a few things. Sunday's an exciting day next weekend, and I'll probably have a lot to say Sunday when I come back and greet you again on the Golden Astrologer Podcast. First of all, Venus, in keeping in the Venus situation, Venus is going to do an inconjunct, which is that needling kind of aspect, to Neptune, 3:24 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday the 4th. Now, Venus and Neptune like each other. They get really smooth and they get very creative. And I think this is a nice, even though it's a little bit of a needling aspect, sometimes we have to get uncomfortable to have some brilliant creative breakthrough, right? So we're working with the energies of the outer planets, and she is talking to them in such a way that is special and inspiring. So Venus and Uranus can be inspiring, and then Venus and Neptune can be inspiring. So they're happening within 2 days of each other. This is a lot of Venusian energy. Venus is busy this week. She is the planet that we pay attention to this week. So she's asking for new, fresh ideas, creativity, maybe some abundance, but she really is connecting to those outer planets. And therefore, the outer planets are the ones that we don't see. And so when we get inspired, we're like, where'd that come from? Well, it's Venus touching the outer planets. And so we don't see them with the naked eyes. So they're, the older astrologers from the early part of the 20th century was like, ooh, they're malefic, because you can't see them. You don't know what they're capable of. And they bring in collective tides. I did an interview with someone today for an online publication, and they were asking me about personal and collective experiences and how they, can work in someone's astrological chart in their experience. So, and I told them, the outer planets represent the collective unconscious. And so we have collective waves and collective cycles. And yes, all of them are doing things right now, which is really profound. They are getting ready to change signs. All three within a year will change signs. And some of them will go back and some of them will go forward. And so, but within a year or so, we're going to be seeing a lot of shifts and changes from the outer planets, which is deep. Within a year. I mean, that's a lot of activity in the collective unconscious moving around in a year. And so when we dip into the collective waters of the unconscious, we start to pick up and connect to big waves in culture and in life and in what we see in newspapers and stuff. And it's always funny to go back and look at things from 30, 40, 50, 100 years ago to what was on the front page of the papers. And and that's why astrologers like myself like to study mundane astrology, collective waves. We like that stuff because it's fascinating. But people's personal experiences come from a combination of the collective unconscious planetary energies and the inner planets. So there's the outer planets and the inner planets. So what's happening is, people get riled up when something like Pluto is like at the end of a sign and is switching to another sign, and people are uncomfortable. They can't put a finger on what it is, but there's this restlessness. There's this freak out on some level. There's the death anxiety that I talked about 1,000 times with my teacher that he told us about. And that's an anxiety that happens when things are ending. So when something big is ending, like Pluto right now after 16 years, that is leaving Capricorn. When we're dealing with that, we're dealing with big collective cycles. People start to freak out. Isn't the world a little crazy right now? People are talking about how the world is crazy. I don't know what's going on in this world. Well, this is what's going on. And I expect that when there's 2 other planets changing signs too, there's going to be more of the same. So what we're looking at really is how we perceive these things in our personal lives. They have, you can look at the paper and go, yeah, that's what's going on. And then you look at your life and how is it trickling down into your life? How is that changing your life? Like there are certain things. If your country's at war, your life is going to be different. If your country is in a bad economy, your life may be different. It depends on you, your life, and what's going on in the collective, how the collective is affecting you. My teacher used to say, well, if Pluto's crossing your moon, that's pretty personal. Yeah, that's personal. It's collective, it's going on in the collective, but it's really personal too. So you're responding to something that is a collective wave that is affecting you personally. You wake up one day and things are different and you feel different and you're in a different place than you were a few months ago. And that's what happens. Within a few months, you're like a different person. So what I was telling this person today in this interview is that I look at people getting incensed about something. They get incensed about the news. They get incensed about religion. They get incensed about politics. And politics is always something that, you don't bring it to Thanksgiving dinner, but it always shows up. And people get crazy and they point the finger and they're like, no, it's that party. And it happens all over the world, right? People get incensed. And it divides people, which is a shame. Because really, it's not supposed to be that heated. And when you see that, and this is from my own personal studies and my observations and 3.5 decades of being a professional astrologer, when I watch people get incensed over politics or somebody else disagrees with where they are and they get like, well, everybody starts to complain and kvetch and all that business, that's got a personal vibe. Yes, they point it out and say, it's them. In the bigger scheme of things, when they watch something on television or they read something in the newspaper or etc. It's them. Really? And why do they piss you off so much? Well, probably because there's something personal going on in that. So collective doesn't always remain collective. Some of it does, and then some of it smacks us upside the head personally. And so, I think that if people were to do some really deep work on themselves, which people aren't always thinking of doing, then they can pinpoint something that was collective and know that it had something to do with their personal life. I think of a conversation, I always think of this conversation when I think of along these terms, of my mother many years ago, talking about a particular president of the United States. And I was like listening to her on the phone one night going on and on and on and on and on about this particular president of the United States. And mind you, my mother's been past 16 years now, so it was before that. And I was listening to her and I said, this isn't about him. This is about my father. And so I knew the whole thing. I knew what she was saying was relevant to her, but it was her personal experience that she was projecting as part of this collective experience that the country was going through as a result of this president and what was going on with him. So that's an example, okay? And that is what I think happens to us. If we find ourselves incensed about something in the greater scheme of the world, instead of pointing a finger, we need to step back. We need to step back and look deeply at our own life and what is pissing us off so much. What's making us that feeling of being incensed, So Venus is triggering 3 outer planets. One of them is a square. It's a direct confrontation. Another one is an inconjunct, which is an indirect conversation with Neptune, but Neptune is insidious anyway, so maybe there's some sneaky energies hanging around or deeply inspired and creative. What you do with it is up to you. And then, as we get into next week, the following week, Venus on Sunday evening is going to move into Virgo at 10:23 p.m. This is next Sunday, and we're going to talk about this again because there'll be different vibes by then. 10:23 p.m. Eastern Time, Sunday night. So by the time she's talking to Pluto on Monday, the 5th, it's 9:18 a.m., and she's in conjunct with Pluto in Aquarius. That is not a comfortable aspect. And Venus will be having a word or two with Pluto, but this is another needling aspect. So she's going to have a confrontation with Uranus on Friday. She's going to have a needling thing with Neptune on Sunday and a needling thing with Pluto on Monday, the 5th. That's next weekend. And so, yeah, that's a lot of energy in one weekend that Venus is talking to all the outer planets. So I expect that our relationships and our creativity and our money and our thoughts about all these things is going to go through some cycle, okay? Keep your head, work through it, stay honest, use your emotional intelligence, right? In the meantime, while that's happening, and we know that Virgo is not Venus's favorite sign because she loves to be in Pisces where she's exalted, the opposite sign, Mercury is going to go retrograde. So we have now a stationing Mercury. Yes, folks, it's that time of the year. Mercury's going retrograde. And so Mercury is going retrograde at 12:56 a.m. Monday morning, the 5th of August. So a lot of the more tense and exciting things are happening later in the weekend and early to next week. Okay, so we're going to glide through this week a little bit with these nice trines from Venus, and then we're going to move into Venus talking to all the outer planets and Mercury going retrograde at the same time. So in most regions of the world, that's going to be Mercury retrograde on Monday. And in my region of the world, it will be, right before midnight Sunday night. And if you live in the Pacific time zone, it will be 9:56 p.m. Sunday night that Mercury goes retrograde. Mercury is going retrograde in its own sign of Virgo that it likes very much. But it's going retrograde, which means it's like 4 degrees Virgo. And it will go back to 21 degrees of Leo by the time we get to about the 28th of August. Now, this is a long retrograde. This is 24 days. Usually a standard Mercury retrograde is about 21. And there was another one earlier this year. I think that was a little short. But this one's long. This one's 3 days past that. It's the 4th, the 5th to the 28th. So it's 24 days long. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of time to be irritated by Mercury retrograde. But we have to learn lessons from Mercury retrograde. It's time to look back and review and rewire and rethink and reestablish and recreate. And especially with it going into Leo, we can recreate, something. And so we look at this and we get connected to what this Mercury retrograde is doing in each of our lives and how that feels and what we are going to process during this time, right? Because it's the whole month of August practically that Mercury will be retrograde. And so this is very interesting. And this to me is the lead in to the rest of this year, because every month for the next several months till the end of the year, we've got some hot astrology happening. So the almost entire month of August is going to be spent with Mercury in retrograde, right? So look at where the beginning of Virgo is in your chart and where mid-Leo is in your chart, and what does that look like for you? What does that feel like for you? How is Mercury affecting your chart? Where is it going? What is it going to talk to you about? What do you need to review? That's one of the big things that's happening with that. There is also, next Sunday the 4th, a new moon in Leo. And that will occur at 7:13 a.m. Eastern Time. So that will be before I do my podcast. And that is at 12 degrees of Leo. So that's very nice because the sun loves to be in Leo, and we have this sparkly energy happening in Leo, and that's favorable. So this is actually a sparkly kind of new moon because it's got some good conversations happening with Mars and Jupiter. And at that point, Mars will be about 10 degrees Gemini and Jupiter will be about 15 degrees Gemini, and they're relatively conjunct. And it's going to speaks very nicely to this new moon. So I see this as buoyant and effervescent and, a good relationship, a good thing. There's no square to Uranus, although the moon will square Uranus later on. There's no squares to Saturn. There's no conjunctions to Saturn. This is what appears to be a very fabulous new moon, which is great because that means there's no ifs, ands, or buts with this new moon. That means we're having, Leo energy, sparkly, creative, fun. And so this is something fun you can do on Sunday. And as we get revved up to this new moon, because the moon will enter Leo 12 hours before or so at 7:10 a.m. on Saturday, the 3rd, this is like we're gearing up for this very nice new moon that's going to have good things to say to Mars and Jupiter. Well, hey, I say that's pretty good. That's not like that 29-degree Capricorn full moon that we had last weekend. You know, that was a lot. That was a lot. That was emotional. That was decisive. Enjoy this. Enjoy this. I'll be on later in the day, but you should be enjoying this before you hear from me, okay? And I'll be on Instagram, the Golden Astrologer, this week, so you'll get to hear me talk about this fabulous new moon that we're having. And this is a really positive new moon. Now, Mercury will be stationing, yes, but it's not really affecting the new moon so much. It's going to be in the air. It might be a little bit of a hanging energy, but this is really a good sparkly thing. And the moon will talk to both Mars and Jupiter between Saturday and Sunday. So that's lovely. I think this is positive. I think that you should make a big wish and you should do something new and get excited for something fun. We're so used to slugging it out with outer planet cycles. And yes, Venus is going to be provoking the outer planets at the same time. But the sun is in its home sign, and it's a new moon in the sun's home sign. The sun and the moon are together, having a blast. So do something, plan a picnic, plan a party, plan an outing. Do something that's going to lift spirits and bring joy. I think that, or creativity, I think that Leo really is about being joyful, and the sun is joyful in Leo. So remember that. We're not getting heavy-duty aspects. The new moon is not aspecting Pluto in opposition, okay? This is fun. This is juicy. It's exciting. Enjoy it. It's fire. It's fire. Have fun with it. Have fun with it. And, as we move through that Venus stuff, and then Venus goes into Virgo, she's going to be very practical. So I would let myself have a good time on Sunday. And sometimes we have to give ourselves permission. Don't spend it like working, Don't do any real hard labor. Go out with your friends. Call someone for lunch. Go swimming. Do something lighthearted, because so many times we take the opportunity to do some work on the weekends, and it's not about that. That aspect is really about having fun. Venus will be also in Leo. At the time of the new moon, Venus will still be in Leo because she's not going into Virgo till later that night. So there's going to be 3 planets in Leo, and that's sparkly and fun. And Venus will be, she's going to be talking to Neptune and then in conjunct, but she's at 29 degrees of Leo, which is aligned with the fixed star Regulus, the king. So something glamorous, something, go out for high tea, go do something, maybe a beauty treatment if you're feeling like it, something fun. Go do it on Sunday, okay? And in the meantime, you can set up a session with me as we go through this cycle of Pluto, going through this last month of Aquarius before it steps into Capricorn on September 2nd or 3rd-ish, depending on where you live. And that experience of Pluto going into Capricorn is the last hurrah of Pluto in Capricorn. And it is the undercurrent of transitioning cycles right now. Because once that November 19th date comes, this is going to be a whole new ballgame. Pluto goes into Aquarius, and that's it for 20 years. No more back and forth. So if you're feeling like you're tying up loose ends, that there are cycles and transitions, come see me for a session, and we can talk about where this is for you and how it's happening and what it feels like. And if you have apprehensions and you feel strange or uncomfortable, then we will work through all of that. You can book a session with me on my website, thegoldenastrologer.com. Click book online. Or if you're on my Instagram, The Golden Astrologer, you can click book now. And I also do very nice, soothing 5D Lemurian Reiki sessions where you can sort of calm down, be present, and allow new information to come from the other dimensions for you, 5D. And what that feels like, it's very soothing. It's lovely. We clear out old energies and we bring in the new. So that's very good to do during transition times as well. I'm available for expansion mentoring. If you'd like more information on that, just contact me, info@thegoldenastrologer.com or deb@debmcbride.com. Okay, and if you're not on my mailing list, well, then go to thegoldenastrologer.com and get signed up on my mailing list on the little pop-up that comes for astrologers' thoughts. And you can sign up and receive my emails, which I don't bombard you with emails, so don't worry about that. Thank you so much for listening. Have a beautiful Venusian week. Enjoy Venus's transition with the outer planets transitioning out of Leo into Virgo. And if you are curious, you pay attention to your chart if you know your chart, and just watch what she does and how it feels to you. What does it feel like? And, you can always let me know. Thank you so much for listening. A beautiful week. Gratitude to all.